Hi, this is Dan Sullivan. I'd like to welcome you to the Multiplier Mindset Podcast. Today we have a great game changer transformation from Michael Reddy. Michael Reddy is just a great member of our Strategic Coach community, not only as a client, but Michael is one of our associate coaches in Strategic Coach, and our associate coaches are just an amazing group of people. Right now we have 15 of them, and on average they have 15 years of coaching experience in Strategic Coach. So this is the huge multiplier that we started in the middle of the 1990s in Strategic Coach, and Michael's just been a star right from the beginning, and his whole approach to failure is, I think, the essence of how Strategic Coach clients for the last 30 years almost, how they really grow, and that is they transform their failures. So I've got a philosophy, a personal philosophy, and Michael just demonstrates this in his interview with us, about how you actually take what seems like most people to be a career-ending failure, and he just uses it as a catapult. And his great unique ability, and we've seen it over and over, is that he helps other companies, entrepreneurial companies, actually transform themselves. So he actually used the wisdom and the insights he got from his own failure to actually show other people how they can overcome their setbacks, their frustrations, and their failures. Michael Reddy is a clear example of someone who has just removed losing from his life. He knows he's going to be an entrepreneur for the rest of his life, so just eliminate losing. If you don't get winning, you get learning. And the learning makes the winning much bigger in the future.
I'll give you the real story why I became an entrepreneur. I got fired. I was a corporate lawyer in downtown Toronto, and I spent 4.5 years training to do something I only did for 6 months. I hated it, and I remember going into the senior partner I was working for saying, this isn't working out, and I need to shift to another lawyer, try a different kind of law. And I remember him saying, you don't have the opportunity, you're fired. That was on a Friday. The nice part is that the other 3 senior partners in the firm all tried to hire me back on Monday to work with them, so my ego was solved a little bit. But I really had seen that being a corporate lawyer was not what I wanted. And I had an opportunity within 7 days to join a man named Warren Watson. He was going into a company that had 29 operating locations, had leases, union contracts, the whole bit. He didn't have legal expertise. And I got to join his partnership, and he and I went and did our first turnaround. He was a mentor to me. And we did over 20 businesses together that we went in and laid the groundwork to turn them around and made them profitable. That to me was a huge turning point in my entrepreneurial life, and then why I never went back. Because now I'm unemployable. No one will hire me. I have to create my own jobs. I say this to the groups, but I think it's important for everyone to get fired once. Because if you're ever going to fire someone, you need to know what it's like on the receiving end. Because it turns their life upside down. And I think you need the compassion and empathy to know what you're doing.
Is there any other setback that you can think of in your entrepreneurial career, something that really turned you upside down and how you got out of that?
Oh yeah, big time. That was in my real estate business. We were doing land development and construction. And we had 2 big projects underway. We had about 50 houses that we were building in 2 different locations north of Toronto. And we had a trust company that was funding us our construction money. So we would sign contracts with potential buyers, and they would put down deposits, and then the trust company would loan us the money to build the houses, and then they would move in, we'd get paid, and we'd pay the trust company. The trust company went broke. So we went from having a complete construction funding line for 50 houses under construction to the trust company going broke, a receiver coming in, taking control, and stopping all loans. So we now had lost our construction financing, but the sites were still encumbered by the company that had gone into receivership, the trust company. So we failed to close all those 50 houses. I had to call each homeowner and tell them they weren't going to get the house. And this was before Christmas. That was tough. That was very tough. And then we scrambled, talked to the trades, and everything stopped dead for a while. But we talked to all the trades, and we'd worked with them for a long time, so they trusted us that we were going to try and resolve this for everybody because they need money and I can't pay them unless I get the money from the trust company that was no longer there. And we were able to use our connections and refinance the projects, but that was a 2.5 to 3 month process. So that was a very tough time to be an entrepreneur. From a financing background, what we do now is that we'll never ever have only one financial source. We'll have 2 banks, 2 trusts, whatever, but we'll always have at least 2 financial institutions funding us at any one time. So if something happens with one, I've got a fallback. And doing the same thing with investors that invest with our projects. We'll have investors involved, but we'll always have other ones that want to be investors with us. So we have other sources of capital and other sources of debt that we can borrow from. So when things are sort of falling apart, I think 2 parts of mindset are important. One is to look back at everything you've accomplished to date and realize that you've actually been through some of those peaks and valleys before, and this is just another valley, and I figured out how to get through the last ones, and I'll figure out how to get through the next one. And just to be optimistic about the future. And to put it in reality. You know, one of the things I think about is that when I think things are tough, and I've got problems, I look out and go, 99.99% of the people on the planet would kill to have my problems. I'm not worried about where I get water, how my children are going to live. You know, they have roofs over their heads, there'll always be food on the table. You know, most people in the world don't have that luxury. So my problems really aren't problems at all.
So everything I've said on this in response to Michael Reddy's story about my own story. I've had lots of bad report cards in my life, but every time I have a setback where something I thought was going to be a big win turns out to be a setback, a failure, I simply say, okay, we're going to switch now to the learning gear and we're going to turn the losing experience into a future, much bigger winning experience. So there's only 2 possibilities. You're either successful, you're winning, or you're learning. No losing.